All right. Good evening, everyone. It's Dr. K here from True by Wellness. Tonight here, I am not live, so I know when some of you guys come across this video, you're gonna be like, "What happened?" No, you didn't miss it. This is intentionally done. So we're recording and we're just gonna post it after. So tonight we have a special guest, Dr. Claudia Guy Crayton. She's also a naturopathic doctor, and this month is Black History Month, and we're coming towards the tail end of it. And we did not want this month to be completed without actually acknowledging African Americans that has made contributions to modern medicine, right? So this is where it all started. So tonight she's going to give a little tidbit on basically, what they've done, what they invented, and how they contributed to modern medicine. So I'm going to allow Dr. Guy to take over, and we'll probably do a little Q&A or something. I'm not sure, but this is just going to be like something factual we're going to do, just something just for your education, just for you to know. All right, Dr. Guy, welcome. Thank you for coming on tonight. It was good. It's good having you.
Thank you, Dr. K, and thank you for inviting me to your series, your live talk series, and we wanted to do one that was recorded, one just in case. We wanted to just do something spontaneous, and it's probably not at a time people can attend, so we're just trying out a recorded video. But tonight or today, at this moment, I wanted to highlight a few doctors. Actually, more than a few, maybe half a dozen doctors of African American descent or Black descent, and show how their contributions have made modern medicine really saving lives, honestly. Okay, and probably without their contributions to this part of conventional medicine, people of our community, Black people, African American descent, wouldn't really benefit, and the world at large wouldn't really benefit from what they have contributed. So Dr. K, pretty much the only thing I don't really think we're gonna do much of a Q&A, but if after listening to the little talk, perhaps you can highlight which of the doctors you think had the most phenomenal impact, or which one is your favorite.
Yes.
Some of these doctors, I don't think we have heard maybe of some of them, a couple of them, and some of them are definitely unsung heroes. And one of them is pretty popular in the media right now, and I think, to me. So we'll get started. I'm just going to share a PowerPoint presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and just do this whole share screen part.
Okay, there we go.
And do you see this right now?
Yep, I'm seeing it.
All right, I'm just going to put in presentation mode. All right, folks, this is African American contributions to modern medicine, essentially a brief survey. The following list of physicians or doctors show that through adversity, essentially racism and prejudice, because some are women, not only were they Black, but some are women. It shows that their potential and their passion for what they do led them to success. And they were all really passionate about what they did, which really led them to the discoveries. And they didn't do this for fame or money. And in fact, none of them really got rich from this per se. So this is by no means an exhaustive list. This is just my top favorite Black doctors. For without them, many aspects of conventional or modern medicine wouldn't exist. So I like this quote from Oprah Winfrey. I think it may have been sort of like, I guess, a motto for some of these doctors. I mean, they may have phrased it differently for each of themselves. It says, "I was raised to believe that excellence is the best deterrent to racism or sexism, and that's how I operate my life." So pretty much she succeeded by just thinking of herself as a person and really trying to get over the obstacles that she is facing. So we know Oprah has been through a lot through her childhood, the fact that she's Black and female, and really, in the totem pole of, I guess, the people always think the Black woman is at the bottom, and there she is on the top. So This is a really good driving motto and something that we can take to heart. So moving on, and I'm just going to keep this really brief because it's just a highlight for some of these doctors. So this video broadcasting really wouldn't take but just a few minutes. I wanted to highlight Kizzy. Now, Kizzy Corbet, she's the youngest doctor on our list tonight. Kizzy is actually a doctor in viral immunology. So not a medical doctor, but a PhD doctor, but still a doctor in her own right. Kizzy, as we all know her, is the leading expert in coronaviruses at the National Institute of Health. Now, Kizzy was born in North Carolina, and as an aspiring scientist, she spent her summers at research laboratories at a very young age. Now she's about 35, 36 years old, and she is now the lead scientist in the development of the COVID vaccine. Dr. Anthony Fauci, as you know, who's the doctor who's pretty much guiding us through this pandemic, he continuously praises Kizzy for her relentless work as the forerunner in immunology during this pandemic. Kizzy pretty much has been working with the NIH for about 7 years. And during this time, she's primarily focusing on coronaviruses. So before the pandemic, her specialty actually was coronaviruses. And who knew this pandemic would pretty much take her to the forefront. So she was working on developing vaccines for the SARS and MERS. SARS is the severe acute respiratory syndrome, and MERS is the Middle East respiratory syndrome. And so we are aware that currently the COVID-19 is part of a spinoff from the family of the coronaviruses, and this has led Kizzy to be the lead scientist in this field. So here we have a young Black female, a doctor, really the lead person, really, in all the vaccines that we're hoping that would end the pandemic, or we're hoping that would ease us out of the pandemic. So next is Dr. Judith Eppilon. Now, Dr. Judy she's not a lead scientist, so she didn't invent anything, but I was on a panel discussion with her. I was on a webinar where she was the panelist, I should say. And I really admire her compassion, really, for developing vaccines in general. So right now, Dr. Judy is the Senior Medical Director of Pfizer Vaccine Clinical Research. She's currently a practicing internal medicine physician affiliated with Harlem Hospital here in New York, where we're based. Her area of expertise is infectious disease. So pretty much her area of infectious disease led her to becoming the senior director at Pfizer. And she knows the ins and outs, just like Kizzy, of developing this vaccine. Whether they work hand in hand together, I don't know. Kizzy does the scientific part of the development of the vaccine, and what Dr. Judy does, based on how she described her job, is to understand how the vaccine that Kizzy is developing is working with the immune system of the subjects or the candidates or whomever are getting the vaccines before they go out into the public. So pretty much the supervision of everyone getting the vaccines during clinical trials was supervised by Dr. Judy. Now, Dr. Judy has a very interesting past. She's actually first American immigrant. Her parents are from Haiti. And I believe when in her early medical career, she was visiting Haiti and realized people would walk hours, 4 to 6 hours to the nearest clinic to get treated for a disease that was completely preventable. And that led her to her pursuit in infectious diseases, primarily developing vaccines. Now, I too went to Haiti on a medical mission about a year or two after the earthquake. And it is pretty devastating to see people not having access to medical care. And so I really understand the compassion that Dr. Judy has to have to develop medicine for people who really they just simply need it. They just need basic medical support. So essentially, I can totally see how that can really kind of reach deep into the heart. It kind of gets you motivated to do something for your people. And so far, she's doing great in her field. Dr. Judy's doing great in her field. Next on our list is Percy, Lavon, Julian. Now, Percy, Lavon, Julian had about a 1 hour, 2 hour special on PBS this month. He is known as the father of the synthesis of human hormones and corticosteroids. Now, it's not that he necessarily per se invented the concept. The concept was there, but the concept was very expensive and very, very hard to make. And so it was not available, barely available in modern medicine. So the work of Percy revolutionized the world of modern medicine with his discovery of making steroids from plants, specifically the Mexican wild yam, or called the Mexican yam. He received about 130 patents through his discoveries. His work and sacrifice through severe prejudice and racism had laid a foundation in the production of human hormones and steroids. And I wish everyone would see if they can get their hands on that PBS special, because Percy really did go through a lot to make this medicine available. So not only did Percy develop the drug, he was passionate to find a way to produce it cheaply enough so that it can be available to everyone, and also for it to produce fast enough so people who need it can get it. So currently, steroids and hormones are pretty much used either to produce birth control pills or corticosteroids. Corticosteroids, for those who don't know, they are used for like like injections for your knees or for your back where there's like chronic inflammation. People who have autoimmune conditions, they take prednisone, and I mean the list can go on for the application for steroids. In fact, when people think of steroids, they're probably thinking of weightlifting and that stuff. That's not what Percy developed. He developed corticosteroids to reduce inflammation and pain and chronic autoimmune conditions or unknown conditions. And in fact, some doctors, if you show up to their emergency room or you show up to their office with some unknown, unusual condition, they do give you steroids to subdue the inflammatory process, which can really alleviate a tremendous amount of symptoms or pain. So this really revolutionized modern medicine to make steroids cheap and available worldwide. In fact, he was competing with Mexico for the production of steroids, but he was able to produce it faster and cheaper enough. In fact, he even went to Mexico and opened up his own plant there so he can just process it right there from the earth. And so this is probably, and as you may know or may have heard, a lot of modern medicine did come from plants. And this is an exceptional example of something herbal being used to make something pharmaceutical. So in fact, I guess because I saw the special on Percy on PBS, I think this is probably maybe my favorite, I guess, invention or contribution to modern medicine, only because I just know the application of steroids between birth control pills or any kind of contraception and any kind of corticosteroid or cortisone shots. So I think this is one of the most phenomenal discoveries or contributions to modern medicine. But there's others, and we'll move on. So here we have Dr. Patricia Bath. She developed a laser probe to remove cataract. And like the previous doctors we talked about, she was motivated by what she saw in the patients or in the people around her. So Patricia is the first woman and the first African American in the field of ophthalmology in 1973. So she's the first female and first Black. But she didn't just, she didn't just take the prestige. Essentially, she just actually used it to, I guess, to help people of Black and African American descent, because at the time, they had profoundly more blindness and more visual impairment in the Black community than in the white community. So she pursued her medical career in ophthalmology because she realized that there was such a disparity in vision. She also fought for eyesight as a basic human right, and so she received a patent to develop her laser probe to remove cataract. And this is essentially now the lasers have improved since then, but this was pretty much the prototype that was used to remove cataracts several decades ago. And so now essentially cataract removal is pretty much routine in ophthalmology and eye surgery. And we have Dr. Patricia to thank for that. So let's move on. Okay, so next we have Dr. Alexa Kennedy. Now, Dr. Alexa isn't necessarily an inventor, or nor did she truly contribute to modern medicine per se, but she kind of got overshadowed. So she's the first African American neurosurgeon and chief of pediatric neurosurgeon, both in Michigan and Florida. So she was the first African American surgeon back in 1981. She primarily served as the chief pediatric neurosurgery, but about 3 years later, Ben Carson came in the picture, and I think his achievements sort of outshone those of Dr. Alexa. So Ben Carson in 1984 was the youngest neurosurgeon in the entire country. Not only was Ben Carson, I don't have a picture of him because I wanted to highlight Dr. Alexa, but Ben also was the first neurosurgeon to successfully separate craniopagus twins. And he pretty much worked primarily with conjoined twins in his career, and I'm sure you've seen documentaries and videos on that. But, unfortunately, his success and his achievements have definitely outshined those of Alexa, because Alexa, in her own right, being the first African American period to break that long history of a white dominant and male dominant field in medicine, because brain surgery is always equated to rocket science. Is always considered to be one of the hardest things that any surgeon can do, and indeed it is. So I just wanted to highlight Dr. Alexa on that. And then we're almost through. Now we have Dr. Charles Richard Drew. He's the father of blood banking. Now, he didn't invent the blood transfusion process, but what was happening back around World War II, like 1940 or so, or even before that, between the 1930s and the 1940s, he actually devised and came up with a way to store blood pretty much indefinitely, because blood had many processes that cause it to clot too soon after it was taken out of the human body. So not only did he prevent it from clotting, but he was also able to store it in the right temperature, in the right environment for indefinitely. So now whenever you get blood transfusions, blood is always available. Blood is always available. And thanks to Dr. Drew, he was able to do that. So he did face a lot of racism and prejudice, and he just had to figure out a way through this. But because of his ability to preserve blood after it has been donated, was one of the reasons why fewer soldiers died in World War II. So he actually was able to save the lives of soldiers because they were able to store blood and transport it anywhere across the world to save soldiers that were either maimed or had to be amputated and there was significant blood loss. So essentially his techniques for blood banking is used today. So there are huge blood banks in different countries, of course, including the United States. And so we have Dr. Charles Drew to thank for that. Okay. Now, let's see. Next on the list, we have Samuel L. Counts. He's the pioneer in kidney transplantation. So Samuel performed many research studies that led him to be the first renal surgeon to successfully transplant a kidney between non-identical twins. Now, before that, you could only do a kidney transplant between identical twins because, of course, they have the same readings on the cells, so that the kidney would not be rejected. But now but it's rare for one of a twin to need a kidney from their another twin. So there are essentially other people who needed kidneys really couldn't get a kidney. And so Dr. Samuel was actually able to figure that part out. So he developed a kidney perfusion machine to preserve kidneys for several hours after it's been harvested from the body. He was able to have kidneys be transplanted between family members and from strangers. So essentially now we have something called a kidney transplant list. And thanks to Dr. Samuel, we're actually able to have kidney donations. And of course, kidneys can now go from, like, if you find the right match, right blood type match, it can go from father to daughter, or from cousin to cousin, or from or from a donor to a recipient, as long as there's the perfect match. And the reason why this is so important now, so these key discoveries are the reasons why kidney transplantation is so now routinely performed between all these different people, whether they're related or not. And because there's so much high blood pressure and diabetes now, they're essentially cause tremendous amount of kidney damage, and a lot of people on dialysis. And some people on dialysis might be waiting for a kidney transplant. And so it's quite possible that, well, thank God for dialysis. I should have tried to figure out who invented dialysis, but kidney transplantation is so needed now because of the the widespread diagnoses of diabetes and high blood pressure that's causing a lot of kidney damage. So this is definitely a life-saving part of medicine here. And our last doctor is Dr. Jane Wright. Dr. Jane Wright she spent most of her medical career as the head of cancer chemotherapy in New York Medical College, where she was pretty much developing anti-cancer agents. Now, this was way back in the 70s, where chemotherapy was just really in the beginning of everything. So no one truly had chemotherapy that's properly designed yet. But Dr. Jane was actually able to come up with some anti-cancer agents that she was able to use. One of them was specifically methotrexate. Methotrexate is a very old chemotherapy drug. I mean, chemotherapy has developed way beyond methotrexate, but methotrexate is still used today. In fact, a lot of people they still use it for cancer in some countries because it's extremely, extremely cheap. It's still used in the United States, maybe not so much for cancer, but they do use it a lot for autoimmune conditions, okay, or any conditions where they need to control the immune response. So who knew that chemotherapy, at least the fundamentals of chemotherapy, really started with Dr. Jane? And cancer is just widespread, just like diabetes and high blood pressure. So the fact that the foundation of anti-cancer agents really was started by a Black woman definitely should sort of, tickle your fancy as to, make you feel proud pretty much of being a person of color. So essentially then, who's your favorite? I definitely covered about 6 or 7 or 8 maybe doctors. I already expressed that my favorite was Percy. You may already have your favorite legendary Black doctor, or even a famous or legendary Black inventor, um, or even somebody that's a political leader. But hopefully today you found a new favorite amongst your African American heroes. So Dr. McDermott, I'm going to stop sharing now, so it's over. But let me see here. So Dr. McDermott, who was your favorite?
The one that stood out to me the most was actually like Percy, but then Richard Charles came about, and I was like, how interesting. Like, who would actually think about storing blood? Like who would think about that we need to store blood, right? And when you think about all these different situation that comes up, car accidents, sickle cell
Mhm.
disease,
Mm.
surgeries, births, women who bleed out too much when they're giving birth. Like, who would think about like that one invention can be, can save millions and millions of lives,
Millions. Millions.
So,
This is essentially his invention is essentially what's been used worldwide now. I guess
wow,
before that, nobody really had a true way of preserving blood. So in the UK, Europe, and the United States have the largest blood banks. And thanks
wow.
to Drew, yeah, that was a
And the
proof.
things that his now, and also that connects to, blood typing, right?
Yeah,
Blood typing, and also now, now they have the blood donations, so it all backs to that, having to donate your blood and all these other things. And, and who knows? I mean, I'm not sure if I didn't do the research on this, but I'm wondering if this not connected to organ donations now after that,
yeah,
like, so so this is interesting. Yeah, I learned something new
yeah.
tonight. I mean, I was expecting you to show all these like century old people that was born in like BC, but a lot of these people are young people. And they like some of them just passed. This last one, she just passed
Yeah.
2013. That's just the other day,
A
you know?
couple, yes, the first African American female neurosurgeon is still alive.
Wow.
Dr. Judy is still alive. Of course, Dr. Kizzy is only 35 years old. I mean, she's younger than I am.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
And these are people you're not seeing on the front line, they're behind the scenes.
that's essentially where I was going. And unfortunately, they don't make history books. They don't make any kind of historical document. You have to really dig for who these people are. And if
Mm-hmm.
you go on Wikipedia and you type up, Black doctors or something, they give a brief like blurb of what they do, and it doesn't seem significant or impactful of what they actually did.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really good to highlight these. And unfortunately, we live in a time still where we have to highlight people of color because they're never really highlighted in media. And so I really
Mm-hmm.
take the time to show how some very critical parts of conventional medicine was really discovered by people of color. Like you said, the blood banking, kidney
Mm-hmm.
donation, the COVID vaccine, I mean, that we're using now, that's pretty much has to go worldwide now. We're in a pandemic.
Yeah, and that's amazing that young the young girl Kizzy, I mean, who would thought that, we'll be in a pandemic that includes coronavirus, something that she's been studying for so many years,
Yeah.
so that's amazing. I mean, but I believe we're also going into a time where African Americans, blacks are now being more highlighted, not just African Americans, but Caribbean Americans, Caribbeans are also being highlighted of their work. And I believe one day they will have history books that will have all these people in it. It will no longer be something that's so buried that you have to now dig and blow dust off of it, to find it. I believe that we're coming across a time now where it's going to be easily be found because people want to know. We're in a generation now where even, kids now, and even, for us who kids will come after us, they're becoming more curious.
Yeah.
They're becoming more inquisitive about things like, okay,
Mhm.
where this really came from. So I feel like we're gonna have a time where we're gonna have just a history book of just blacks, of what they did, whether it be medicine, whether it be engineering, whether it be law, whatever, whatever that is.
Yeah, and hopefully it's not just highlighted on February.
And that too, right? All year round, all year round. Because you'd be
Oh, you're
surprised. A
right.
lot of things that we're using today, even just in medicine, were developed by blacks. But that's not acknowledged or even
Yeah,
spoken
it's not,
about.
and in fact, a lot of technologies from our telephones to video games were all
Mm-hmm.
invented by people of color. I
Yep.
mean, those are more in the different, those are in different kinds of sciences. I was really just focusing on conventional medicine, what you, Dr. K, and I pretty much work with on a day-to-day basis and make
Mm-hmm.
blend into some of the talks that you're going to be having.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, I didn't really cover all the other inventions people of color came up with, or the patents that they have. So I really just focused on a small sect of doctors, and really doctors who don't get highlighted, one, and doctors who have contributed significantly to
Mm-hmm.
medicine. And I still like Percy because I like the story of where he literally sacrificed everything, all his money, his job, his career, his lab, like everything went burned to the ground. Not burned to the ground, but pretty much they were the scientists were working like 24/7 just to get this done. Like the sacrifice
Wow.
and tears. And after all of his inventions and the fact that he was able to transform medicine at the time, he still was not accepted into um um the Hall of Fame. You know,
Wow.
white doctors, white scientists have to vet for him to bring him in, where, he made this transformative discovery, but yet, because of his skin color, he wouldn't even be let
Yeah.
in. He became the first, black doctor ever in the medical association, essentially.
Oh wow. And corticosteroids is something that's used for so many things, like so many things.
Yeah. So many things. The list, from eczema, we have it on the shelf. It's called hydrocortisone.
Mm-hmm.
From eczema to
Oh,
psoriasis, rheumatoid
mm-hmm.
arthritis, MS,
Mm-hmm. I was about to say autoimmune diseases.
autoimmune conditions,
Mm-hmm.
joint stuff, injuries.
Yep.
The list goes on, and not just for corticosteroids, but also human steroids, because he developed also progesterone, so that led to the production.
Right. The wild yam, the Mexican
Yeah,
wild yam. Mm-hmm.
exactly. It led to production of different kinds of birth control, not just the pill, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Who knows? Maybe one day we could do a talk on picking certain pharmaceuticals that were made from actual botanicals,
Yeah.
like foxglove and with digitalis and
Mhm.
white willow bark with aspirin and all these things. And it's just that they were added, chemicals were added to them to make them more artificial, for lack of a better term. So maybe we could do our talk on that, actually, just to highlight and educate
Oh,
on.
there's so many. Everybody
There's a
knows
ton.
how statins came from Reddy's rice, and
Yeah.
metformin originally was from a plant. Believe it or not, and I think that's why people are so concerned about the destruction of the Amazon, because so many medicines can derive from plants they're yet undiscovered.
Hmm.
So we don't know what's truly awaiting plants that we have not yet interacted with. Because
Right.
a lot of these discoveries were by chance or by the history of its use in the people.
Hmm. Right.
And so that would take a lot of research, because, of course, that part of the pharmaceutical history is a lot hidden. They don't want to know that a lot of the
Right.
plants were developed, a lot of medicines were developed from plants. That's not something to talk about.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Like
And
people
that's
would
not
go,
something they want to highlight either.
yeah, because then they feel people would go to that herb and try to serve themselves rather than use their medicine.
Right, right. So, all right. Well, it's been great. Thank you, Dr. Guy, for coming on tonight and talking about African American contribution to modern medicine. I just learned something tonight, actually, to be honest with you. This actually remind me of my biology days in high school and college. So, but thank you for coming on tonight. We definitely will have much more of this. We're definitely gonna do more, and we'll do some lives too, guys, so you guys can interact with us, so interact with Dr. Guy. Dr. Guy, if they want to look for you or find you, where can they find you? Do you have an email address or um
I'm working on making myself visible in the world right now. I'm just raising my son, and I don't, getting I want to help people, but I'm just not in a place to help people as much as I could. So I'm not making myself quite visible out there yet, but the time will be when I will just launch myself and I'll come on here and everything will be in its place.
Yeah, awesome. So, but we're gonna have Dr. Guy again, guys, tonight. So this is your first taste of her, and trust me, she's very knowledgeable and very passionate about helping others and educating others. So we definitely have her more on this platform, and among many others. So it was great. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this webinar, or you want to call it this recording tonight. If you have any questions, you guys could definitely reach out to me. If you have any questions for Dr. Guy, I can reach her for you. You can just send me an email at truevine.wellness at gmail.com or info@truevine.wellness.com, and you can message me, or you can message me on Facebook or Instagram at Truevine Wellness if you have any questions for Dr. Guy. All right, guys. Thank you. Have a good night. Thank you, Dr. Guy, again for being with us tonight. Thank you for this awesome information. All right,
Thank
take care, everyone. Be blessed.
you. Okay, be blessed. Bye.
Bye.